Tomorrow, the Philippines joins the world in observing Down Syndrome Day. This day is seen by advocates as an opportunity to raise awareness on the condition and how to properly care for children with Down syndrome. To tell us more about this, we have in the studio Dr. Francis Javier de Malanta. He's a developmental and behavioral pediatrician. Good morning, doctor, and welcome to New Day.
Good morning, doctor.
Now, let's explain first. A developmental behavioral pediatrician is a subspecialty of pediatrics.
Yes, so we handle children with special needs from birth to 18 years old and 364 days.
Right, excellent. Now, doctor, Down syndrome is one of the most, it's on the top list of one of the most common genetic disorders or chromosomal disorders in the world, and not just the Philippines. What exactly is the reason for someone to have Down syndrome?
So Down syndrome is a genetic accident.
Okay.
It means that, well, it occurs in about 1 out of 800 cases. So it's relatively been the same over the past years.
Okay.
And being a genetic accident, it means that it's passed on. Although there are 3 different types. What's important is that the children who are diagnosed with this receive early intervention so that they could progress properly and be at par or hopefully close to par with children their age.
Now, very quickly, doctor, could you mention those 3 types that you mentioned? So
we have a full trisomy, a translocation, and mosaicism. So these are like the technical terms.
Right.
But what's important, again, is to know probably what type it is so that if a parent will have a child, like a first child with Down syndrome, then they're guided as to what are the possibilities. Although the youngest mother I've had with Down syndrome was 18 years old.
Okay.
We know that it increases in terms of age of the mother, but again, 95% of cases are not actually known. Right. Save for that being a genetic accident.
Okay, now doctor, now as we have different types of Down syndrome, children with with Down syndrome are treated differently because they have different human needs as well. Now, what are some of the common behaviors that we see with those with Down syndrome, and how should the parents properly prepare or treat them?
Okay, so initially, during the first year of life, we look at the motor skills, the big muscle groups, and when a child is born with Down syndrome, they're seen as very floppy, like a rag doll.
Okay.
So we need to work on their big muscle groups. We need to do physical therapy, and then work on their small muscle groups, the hands and how they use to feed themselves. So we don't do occupational therapy. Then if they're not verbal, we teach them or have the speech therapists enter. So it's a multidisciplinary approach where there's a whole team that takes care of a child, plus making sure that there aren't any cardiac difficulties, gastroenterology difficulties, endocrine, so that the child is treated as a whole.
Okay, now it seems like there are a lot of specialties or a lot of teams like that you mentioned that caters to those with Down syndrome. And what are actually these services that enable those with Down syndrome to reach their full potential?
As I mentioned earlier, so the allied health professionals play a big role because they will be seeing the child every week, twice a week, depending on the needs of the child. And again, like I said, if we're able to rule out all the medical concerns of this child, they can live the same way we all do past 55, 60, and it's been very encouraging that in our country now we have inclusion and inclusive in terms of even finding job opportunities for children with Down syndrome.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned job opportunities because a lot of people who aren't exposed to those with Down syndrome frequently ask the question, can those with Down syndrome actually have a job? Can they work? Can they be productive in the workplace?
Yes, we already have a few of them employed under this Project Inclusion, and because of a family support group, the Down Syndrome Association of the Philippines, which is celebrating their 27th year this year. They just finished a happy walk, which they do every 3rd Sunday of February. And again, here, the move is to get everyone part of society and not to be treated any more special than they are.
So aside from what you mentioned, are there other communities here in the Philippines that cater to or support those with Down syndrome?
Yes, there are different foundations, and right now what we're trying to do also is, again, put them all together so that those, depending on the needs of the child, like there could be a Down syndrome child who's nonverbal, but there are those who can actually finish up to a certain degree. That can get gainful employment.
Okay, very well. And thank you, developmental and behavioral pediatrician, Dr. Francis Javier de Malanta. Thank you again, doctor, for sharing your knowledge and giving better insight for Down syndrome.
Thank you very much.